What the city is talking about, the news that impacts you. Welcome to the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Welcome to the Montreal Now podcast here on the iHeartRadio network. I'm Aaron Rand along with Natasha Hall. Let's take a look at what happened this week. What we used to call a layaway plan has resurfaced a generation later as BNPL, buy now, pay later. And it's younger people who are getting hooked. We'll talk to a finance expert on the things to watch out for.
Airport delays, passport delays. You won't believe what one woman's been going through. When did traveling get this complicated? And what can be done about it? Also, we'll meet Marie-Philippe Poulin, an Olympic champion and national hero. And she's just been hired to do what? This is so awesome.
Plus, Russian and Chinese hacking. Yeah, we've heard of that before, right? But it's a problem that hasn't really come to light in Canada, at least not until now. We'll talk to someone who says it's been happening now more than ever and that governments aren't reacting quickly enough.
But we begin with this. So we've been making it a point to meet the candidates running for leadership of the Conservative Party. We've spoken to Jean Charest, Patrick Brown, Pierre Poilievre, and this week it was time for Leslyn Lewis. And I think it's fair to say this interview did not go at all as we expected.
Let me begin by asking this, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but we've heard from a lot of the big names. I mentioned Patrick Brown and Pierre Poilievre and Jean Charest as well, about how many people they have now who they signed on as members. Have not heard a lot from your camp. Do you want to talk about that at all? Or do you think the idea of these numbers as they're being sort of flaunted every day mean absolutely nothing?
Yes, the latter, to be honest with you. We outsold our last run's number from 2020. So we did very, very well. And as you know, I won the popular vote in the last leadership race. I believe that when people put out their numbers, they are always exaggerated. And if you look at what the membership was before we started, if you look at what Pierre said he sold and what Patrick said he sold, and I know how many I sold. So we would have to be close to 900,000. And I don't think that's where the numbers are.
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing is a lot of duplication because we actually contacted a number of we sent out emails to our supporters, and many of them have said that they received an email from the Poilievre campaign stating that they weren't registered on the last day. So many of them extended their memberships for a year, thinking that they weren't going to be able to vote because the note actually looked like they weren't eligible to vote. And so many people panicked, and I would say thousands. So we're going to see a lot of duplication.
Who is supporting you? What is a typical Leslyn Lewis supporter?
I think a typical Leslyn Lewis supporter is someone who is tired of wokeism and cancel culture and who wants to see us unite and move forward, recognizing the unique, distinct features of each region in our country, recognizing the importance of our environment, recognizing the importance of a strong economy, but also acknowledging that even if we have all those things and the fabric of our society is being torn apart, then we are not really building a strong country, that we have to come together in all these areas and bring our supply chains home and have open and honest conversations, even about very difficult topics. I think many people are in their workplace, in education, they're just tired of not being able to have conversations without being labeled and demonized. And I think people are moving away from that and just wanting to have honest conversations and do the best for our country.
Do you believe, as some are pointing out, that we are now more divided than we've ever been before in this country?
I think we are. Traveling, I've been to all 10 provinces. I'm yet to go to the territories, which I plan on doing in the next few weeks. And what I'm hearing is that we are very, very divided. We're divided on issues of language. We're divided on issues of regional development. We're dividing on how we should attack the environment, how we should treat the environment, even on what economic policies are viable, whether we should continue to strengthen our capitalist background or whether we should move towards a more flat egalitarian society. Like, there's so much division and confusion. And I think it's right for someone to come in and unite not only the party, but unite the country.
Ms. Lewis, I get excited about women in politics, especially women of color. I think that I really truly believe that representation is everything. Where you kind of lose me is not kind of, I mean, you totally lose me, in fact, is when it comes to your stance on being pro-life. I personally can't grasp that anyone would want to take away a woman's right to choose. And so I do feel compelled to ask you why. Why is that your stance? What led to that decision?
Why do you think that I am taking away women's right to choose? Which policy are you referring to?
That you are pro-life.
I am pro-life. I'm personally pro-life. But that's my personal belief. I have created policies that unify the country. I look at what Canadians can agree on. Most of my friends are pro-choice. And when I sit down and I have an intelligent conversation with them, I'm not having a conversation because I think I'm going to convert them, nor are they going to convert me. Because I think that where we are, the problem that we have right now is that people are afraid to say what they believe. They believe that we all have to think the same way. And the reason why I put it out there that I'm pro-life is because I want people to know that your beliefs, you're entitled to them. And as a legislator, I would make sure that I make the best policy for all Canadians. As a lawyer, I had a diverse practice. Like one of the biggest areas of my practice was defending LGBTQ plus people who were fleeing persecution, fleeing being persecuted potentially by death and coming to Canada. I was their lawyer. And so an individual, their personal beliefs and their policies, your policies, you do what is best for all Canadians. And that's why my pro-life policies actually are things that the majority of Canadians believe in, such as pregnancy care centers, things that we could unite on. And I think that it's important that we have these tough conversations and we don't start from the premise of judging each other and saying, I can't get behind you because I'm going to assume something false about your policies when I haven't even looked into your policies. We need to stop doing that if we're going to be united as a nation.
So you do believe in a woman's right to choose?
I told you I'm personally pro-life. I cannot choose for another woman. I cannot stand in another woman's position. What I can do is create policies that unify people and also respect life. And I believe that even if a person is pro-choice, there's different degrees of people who are pro-choice. I have pro-choice friends who do not believe that you should have an abortion at 9 months. I have pro-life friends who don't believe in birth control. There's different degrees on the spectrum, and the media and government wants to put you all in the same category and have you fighting against each other over things that may not even be so.
Okay. Does that mean then if you were to become the elected leader of the party, then if we go forward to become the prime minister, you would leave the laws as they stand right now in place?
Well, I have 4 policies. I'm gathering that neither of you have read my policies while you're asking these questions.
No, I'm talking strictly about this issue over abortion.
I can go over them if you'd like.
No, we're not going to have time for you to do that. I'm asking you specifically on the issue of abortion. Would you leave the laws in place as they are right now, as they stand currently?
I have 4 policies. One of them would be sex-selective abortion also, right? I don't believe that a baby girl is any less valuable than a baby boy, and that's Kathy Wagenthal's bill. And 78% of Canadians agree with me on that issue. So what I'm trying to say is that the issues that I've focused on are things that Canadians all agree on, the majority of Canadians. And I think that what we've done is we've simplified things so that we could demonize people and say, you are against this, you're against that. I'm really surprised. I don't believe that either of you have read my policy.
Ms. Lewis, what we are trying to do is what we're trying to make happen here is for our listeners to get to know you. And I think it's fair to assume that none of the listeners will have read your policies. There's a possibility that they have, but we ask questions so as that they can get to know you. Let's talk about the fact that...
But when we're making assumptions about who I am without giving me a chance to say what my policies are, you told me that I couldn't... you didn't have time to hear my policies. And that's what I'm here to do, is to share my policies with people so
Okay.
that they can understand that the image that they may have may not be correct.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let me ask you then, as far as policy goes, Bill's 96, Bill's 21. We've heard other candidates speak up and about this. What's your position here?
Well, on Bill 21, I do believe in religious freedom. I don't believe that a person wearing a hijab or a kippah or a Christian cross should be discriminated against because of their faith. And I don't believe that the government should punish people because of their faith.
Okay, and on Bill 96?
Bill 96, it was beautiful getting to know the people of Quebec. And one thing I realized is that the culture needs to be protected. Many people feel a sense of vulnerability that maybe in 2 generations, their culture will be completely decimated. And so I see value in Bill 96. My concern is that I'm concerned that it may lead to alienation if you're fining people for speaking one of the official languages. So while I see very strong merit in the bill, I do think it does need to be refined.
You see strong merit in the bill?
Yes, I do. I understand why the bill exists. The bill exists to perpetuate the French culture and the survival of the French language. So in that vein, I see the importance of it. What I have a problem with is the alienation that it could cause for Anglophones. And I read the bill, and there was a $5,000 fine that would be levied against employers, and I think that could lead to alienation. And Anglophones would be speaking one of the official languages of the country, and I don't believe that they should be penalized for that.
I didn't hear you mention anywhere in your sort of rationale here on Bill 96 the notwithstanding clause. Is that not a concern for you?
Yes, it is a concern. It is a concern for me, absolutely.
Okay. I wish we had more time. We don't. I want to thank you very much, Natasha. Did you want to bring up something?
No, I also
Okay.
I just wish we had more time.
So do I. Maybe we can do this again, Ms. Lewis.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
can come back again.
Okay. Well,
I'd love to come back and speak to you again and maybe get a little bit more into my policy.
okay. We'll see what we can put together. Thank you so much for your time today. It's very much appreciated.
All right. Thank you for your
bet.
time. I appreciate it.
Informative, interactive, and always interesting. This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
The expression, what's old is new again, now applies to something you might remember from a generation or two or more ago. The layaway plan, you remember, which allowed you to pay a small amount up front and then pay off the balance over time. Well, now it's back and it has its own acronym, BNPL. Buy now, pay later. But now it's being embraced by a brand new demographic of millennials and even Gen Zs. KELLEY KEEHN with what to watch out for. KELLEY KEEHN is a personal finance educator and author of the book Rich Girl, Broke Girl, and she's on the line right now. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Aaron and Natasha. Great to be with you. An important topic that's growing.
So, yeah, let's talk about it because that's one of the key issues here, or the concerns, is the fact that it is growing, right?
Well, I mean, when you see it on TikTok and you see these people like having a party, getting more stuff, as if we aren't tempted enough going on social media, feeling inadequate that, you know, we don't have the newest thing, the greatest thing, more of newness. So, yeah, when you see it on TikTok, you know, it's probably a thing we need to really unpack and realize that, you know, there's some benefits to it. But, Aaron, as you were saying, you know, my mom did layaway when I was growing up. But it was truly no risk because she didn't get the thing until she paid all the money. But now with buy now, pay later, you're getting it now. You really have to read that fine print because these companies are making a lot of money. So obviously people aren't reading the fine print and they're paying a lot of fees.
Okay, so how does it work? Like I even am getting to know the names of these. I've never used it, but like PayBright, Klarna, Sezzle, and then now I think even Apple's getting in on this. So I mean, it's going bonkers. What do we need to know? How does it work?
Right. So, and Apple, I believe it's just in the U.S. right now, but I'm sure it'll be here soon because everyone's jumping on board. And yeah, I'm sure almost everyone has seen it who has done any shopping online recently. If you're at Sephora or Air Canada or whatever you're buying, it's like, hey, you know, you can pay $100 for this, or you can pay 4 easy payments of $25, and there's no interest. Now, this is where you really have to drill down. So I don't think WestJet has this. I booked a flight recently on Air Canada. I could be wrong. I haven't been on WestJet in a while. But I saw it on Air Canada recently, too. It was like, well, you can pay this amount for your flight, or you can just pay these, like, few easy payments. And I was like, whoa, they have it now, too. So you've got to read the fine print. So some of them, they claim that there's no interest at all, and it's true if you make the 4 easy payments or whatever they're offering. But here's where the kicker is. Big fees if you don't pay on time. Now, there's some buy now later that they are very open to the fact that they do charge fees. Okay. So, for example, I really went through the fine print on the one that Air Canada uses, and I think it was like 11.9%, which, better than a credit card, let's say, right? Mm-hmm. Better than throwing it on a 24% interest credit card, if that's how the family had to choose. But here's what I worry about. So first of all, they said it doesn't impact your credit to see if you qualify. Okay. Now I paid cash for it. I didn't need it, but I just went down the rabbit hole. So it doesn't impact your credit, let's say for this particular one I was on for the air flight, but if you accept it, it does affect your credit. Oh. So here's something too, right? If you start going through some of these buy now, pay later, that does affect your credit when you actually enact the purchase or activate the purchase, that could really hurt your credit score, number one. Number two, we already talked about the fees. Number three, if there is interest, that can really add up. But guys, here's what really concerns me. Let's say, you're not doing very well financially. You really need a vacation and you deserve it. And you're willing to just, maybe just you and your spouse go on a vacation, go whatever. And then you see, oh, well, instead of $2,000, you can get it for $159 a month. And you're like, heck, let's bring the kids. Let's upgrade to business class. Yeah. It's only going to be a little bit more. I could see the temptation of it. So all of that rolled in together. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad, but if you are spending more than you need to, if you're potentially hurting your credit, if you do not have the means to really pay this, is this right for the average person?
Okay, I want to go back to what you said, because people may think when you do buy now, pay later, that in the same way you're paying interest on a credit card, right, when you're borrowing money basically from a credit card company, if you split, say, that $100 4 ways and have to pay $25 a month, so you're paying no interest on that. But as soon as you miss one of those payments, boom, that starts kicking in, right? So that's when you mentioned fees apply. The problem, I think, with this is now so many companies realize it's kind of like and maybe this works in the credit card company world as well, Kelly, they want you to miss a payment because then those fees, that interest starts to add up.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, so there's two components to it. Number one, the retailer wants you to use this because they know if you see $25 as opposed to $100, you're just going to spend more. Not only are you more likely to get that purchase, but you're more likely to just spend more. Maybe you had $100 in mind, so you're now like, well, maybe I'll spend $400 and split it into 4 payments of $100. So that works for the retailer, which is great, right? They're in business. I get it. We want to stimulate the economy. But you're right. If you miss that payment, these, regardless of the other companies that are overt that they're charging interest, okay, there's that category. But for the ones that say, yeah, there's no fees, there's no interest, they're making a lot of money. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but they're very profitable. Mm-hmm. So obviously a lot of people are missing their payments. And there was a story out of the UK on CNN the other day talking about how much people are going into debt to pay off this debt. Right. So they were like, here's the thing. We always think we're going to do better in the future. We think we're going to make more money tomorrow. We think we're going to get a better job next week. We think that things are going to improve in our finances. And I'm the first to put my hand up that I love retail therapy. And it feels good to get something now and kind of get out of maybe some stuff that you're dealing with. But if that money isn't there and you are hoping that when the other 3 payments come due, that the money's going to be there, yeah, people are going into debt to cover the debt, or like you said, they're missing the payments and paying big penalties for it.
And in particular, young people, it seems to me. I mean, that might just be my impression, but I feel like they're almost preying upon young consumers.
Sure they are, right? More stuff. We're in that Amazon Prime mentality where we want it now, we want it in 24 hours shipped to our door, we want something new and novel. I mean, gone are the days. I don't know how old you are, Aaron and Natasha. I'm 47, but my mom used to buy things that you would pass on, and we're just in that culture where it's instantaneous, and we just want more and more and more. And this is an opportunity to get more and more and more at at a lower price. And quite frankly, you know what? People have been suffering for a couple of years, and they haven't been around friends and family and events and concerts. And maybe this is their one slice of pleasure. But, I mean, the thing is, and it's not that you don't deserve it, you do, but please read the fine print. Make sure that you're able to cover this, that you're able to cover it. If you're signing up for it on a wing and a prayer, you're better just to try to tell yourself no and actually save up for it on your own. Then if you've got that $100 in the bank, you can say, sure, I'll do the 25, 25, 25, 25 because I know I've got the money to cover it. But if you don't have the money to cover it, I urge you to just step away from the computer because it's not worth it.
Yeah, I love what you
Great
said
advice.
too, because people may not realize, right? If you see things, because I mean, clearly 25 times 4 times seems a lot cheaper than laying out $100. So what do? I think you're right. You end up buying other stuff thinking, well, I only spent $25. And then that starts accumulating, and then you're really behind the eight ball.
And it's this immediate gratification thing that we've become addicted to, right? Like everything has to be now. And I think as adults, at least we know that you can get burned. We've probably been burned and we've learned our lesson. But the younger you are, the more likely you are to be, as you were describing,
mistakes.
Kelly, optimistic.
Yeah.
Oh, no, this is going to be great. Things will get better.
Maybe we need to change it from BNPL, buy now, pay later, to buy now, worry later, because that's what you will end up doing. Kelly, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron and Natasha.
You
Be
bet.
well.
Asking questions, looking for answers. Here's more of Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Canada, the target of a disinformation campaign by Russian and Chinese hackers? Say it ain't so. But a new study says it is. It's found over 6 million tweets and retweets that show exactly that. Foreign entities try to influence public opinion here. What's more concerning, perhaps, is that while we now know it's happening, the government doesn't seem to be all that concerned or prepared to do something about it. We spoke to one of the study's authors. You know how we have heard so much about Russian hacking and spying and fake emails, and every time that's always happened up until now, it's been primarily about the U.S., right? The United States, during Trump's campaign, et cetera, et cetera. So imagine when I came across a story that shows a new study has found that over, get ready, 6 million tweets and retweets originating from Russia, possibly even from China, have targeted Canada.
Interesting.
Canada. Who cared about us? Who knew? But that's apparently what's been going on. So I thought we'd try to find out some more here, perhaps why this is going on. Jean-Christophe Boucher is an assistant professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Calgary. He's on the line right now. Mr. Boucher, thanks for your time today.
It's a pleasure.
So, look, maybe, as Canadians, we figured out who would really care about what's going on here. But to read that it's been this, unless I'm wrong, this massive a campaign kind of makes you wonder what the purpose here is or was.
Right. I mean, like the major data set is 6 million. Like the good news is that not all of them come from Russia and China. And what we're also tracking is tweets that are designed and created in Canada. So basically the way we've done this is we are collecting through like what we call a Twitter API, all tweets that mentions Russia, Ukraine or Russia in Cyrillic or Ukrainian, and kind of analyze this data from there. So what we're mapping out is basically the interaction or the conversation on social media on the Ukraine war. And one of the things we wanted to understand, and the reason why we did this, is we had all these allegations, and we had the kind of anecdotal evidence before the Ukraine war that Russia was conducting information operation. It was promoting propaganda. It was targeting and engaging with Canadians. And we have a data set, for example, during the Crimean crisis, and they tried to do this in Canada. And so we want to see, if that was true, right? Is there foreign influence? Are there foreign operations, coming to Canada? And if so, where did they come from? What did they say? Who are the Canadians who are retweeting these things? And that's what the study kind of finds. And what we find is two things. on one hand, is that a major part of foreign interference, like essentially foreign accounts promoting Russian propaganda actually comes from the U.S. And that was the kind of weird result that we found out of that.
Huh. And what are the kinds, so you said it's about Russia and Ukraine and the invasion primarily. What are the kinds of things being said? What kind of disinformation are you seeing?
So basically we're finding essentially like so we're using machine learning to read all these tweets. We're not going to read 6 million tweets. So we use like AI to kind of read those, and we have a pretty sophisticated way of doing this. But basically what the algorithms told us is that there's like 5 big narratives that are pushed by Russian propaganda, either coming from the U.S., coming from China, or from Russia. The first argument is that, the Russian invasion is actually a result of NATO's expansion eastward. They're accusing NATO of trying to push eastward, and thus they had to kind of knock down Ukraine before it was being part of NATO. The second argument is also attached to NATO is that NATO is waging a proxy war against Russia, using Ukraine as a way to kind of covertly wage war against Russia. The third argument, I must say, these two are the major arguments. Like in Canada, most of the pro-Russian tweets or most of the Russian propaganda really lean in these two big themes. The other ones that we see is that there's an argument that the Russians are invading Ukraine because they're trying to denazify Ukraine. That doesn't really hold ground a little bit, and people are not interested in that argument in Canada. And the last two are kind of associated with mistrust in institution. And here, there's a broader, big argument, mostly on the left, about how the war in Ukraine is the consequence of globalist elites, fomenting dissension and conflict in ways to profit from the war. And somehow the Trudeau government and all the Western government are complacent in kind of creating this fake crisis so that we can actually impose our rule in Russia. That's what we really see.
As I hear you describe this, and that's pretty mind-boggling, I think to myself, and I don't know if it's even measurable, my question would be, what kind of impact do you believe this has, or does it?
Right. So it's a good question. And so anecdotally and what we see in surveys, it has a bigger impact than we think. So on the one hand, only about 25% of accounts are promoting these pro-Russian propaganda. So, there's a silver lining saying 75% of Canadians are actually interacting with other kinds of news, which is a good thing. But the troubling part is that those that are, engaging in the pro-Russian misinformation group are getting more and more radicalized. We see, for example, that it happens a lot on the right and on the far left. We see that these people more and more are getting polarized and getting misinformed. And when we do surveys, we find, for example, a fascinating survey done last week showed that people who vote for the People's Party are more likely to believe Russian propaganda than any other Canadians, even conservatives. So it has an impact. It actually changes people's mind, and it pushes part of our society on the margins and radicalizes them and makes them mistrust institutions and essentially erode democratic resiliency.
I'm curious about, we know Canada has a very high proportion of Canadians of Ukrainian heritage. Does that come into play in terms of why we would be targeted?
It does. So that's a good question, and it's the first time actually that somebody asked me this question. So one of the reasons why Canada is doing so well in the misinformation space is because of our Ukrainian population. I'm out in Calgary. Something like 1.2, 1.4 Canadians associate themselves to being part of the Ukrainian diaspora. And that means what? That means that all these people who still have ties to Kiev, still have family in Ukraine, interact with them consistently. They have connections with them, and a lot of the information we get in our social media space comes directly from Ukraine, from the Ukrainian diaspora. In fact, we have another study during the Crimean crisis that shows that the Ukrainian diaspora's mobilization on social media was able to drive some of the content, not only of news agencies, but also the Canadian government. So it plays a major role in how this is shaped. And of course, it becomes a prime target for Russian operatives to look at who are the activists and who are framing and shaping public opinion in Canada and the West.
I guess the last question is, knowing all this and having so much information, is there a way to stop it?
It's such a mess. The government of Canada is so behind in trying to address misinformation online. And really, we're running around and trying to figure out this. Technically, in Canada, there's no real department responsible for information operations. There's Global Affairs, National Defense, Public Safety, Heritage Canada, that are all kind of responsible, and no one is responsible. There's an insane tendency of the Trudeau government, but that was also the case in the Harper government, to centralize information at the PMO level, which means that nothing can actually be done. And there's lack of regulations, there's lack of policy. We're really at the beginning of talking about this issue, and somehow we were kind of complacent, saying like, oh, this is an American issue, or this was like a French or UK issue during the Brexit. But now we're seeing more and more that it actually drives things, right? We've seen during the COVID pandemic how, information like created, vaccine hesitancy in Canadians. We saw during the Freedom Convoy how social media could be used to be mobilized issues. And now we're seeing with the Ukraine war where there's a portion of the population are getting, radicalized. And it's a concern.
Wow. As you describe all that, I'm thinking to myself, great, if we're that badly prepared and we know all this, it can only get worse before it gets better.
Well, that's my sense, and what concerns me also is that there's kind of this sense that if we if we regulate platforms and social media platforms, we'll solve all the issues, and I don't think that's true. Like, the platforms have their problems, and of course we should regulate them more closely. But there's also sorts of issues with transparency within the government of Canada. There's issues around having policymakers and politicians, pushing and having these conversations with Canadians. There's also a problem with responsibilities. People, for all the data sets I have, people like Maxime Bernier or Ezra Levent are major influencers pushing Russian narrative in Canada. And there's a lack of accountability around this. Maybe we could hold these people accountable, say you're actually eroding our democratic resiliency. You're really eroding our trust in democratic institutions. And there must be somehow something that we could push back and have this conversation. We're not there yet, but we're still kind of behind, and we're trying to find our way into this.
Wow. Lots of work still left to do, but good for you on digging up this data. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
It was a pleasure.
Jean-Christophe Boucher at the University of Calgary.
He's excellent.
Kind of scary, isn't it?
He's whip smart, and the kinds of information that he's relaying to us is kind of terrifying.
Hopefully the government's starting to pay attention, because clearly it needs to.
The stories in the news that are worth your time. Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Traveling always comes with its challenges, but that has been taken to a whole other level lately, particularly if you need to get your passport renewed or if you happen to be going through Toronto's Pearson Airport. What is going on? And wait till you hear what one woman's gone through just to try to get her mom's passport.
Turns out, if you've been paying any attention, travel in this country has gotten more and more difficult. Just when you thought, once the whole COVID situation was contained, it would get easier, it's only gotten worse. And you've seen the pictures of the lineups at Pearson Airport. People have posted videos.
Mayhem, absolute mayhem.
About what's going on there and the hours that it takes to get through. So before we deal with passports, let's deal with that. John Graddick is a faculty lecturer and academic programs coordinator. He is over at McGill. Mr. Graddick, first of all, thank you for your time. People have been seeing these, reports almost on a daily basis. And I know that the transport minister, Omar Al-Gabra, was saying, well, wait a sec. It's not like we're doing nothing. We just hired 865 people to try to make things better, but it doesn't seem to be getting better. What is the problem here in your estimation?
Well, it's nice to be with you this afternoon. Much appreciate the invitation. So what the minister basically said is that, they had last week planned to bring 400 people in. This week we're up to 865. The problem is it's not an instantaneous apparition of these people at the airport. It is going to take time to get those people trained and to get them into a fully mobilized capability to operate. So I don't think this is a solution that will be in place within the next few days or few weeks. It'll probably take a few months before these staff start to show up at the airport.
Depressing.
And now what's happening with the passport situation? Why is that? Why are those lineups so long?
That's a different story. I think that, the question is which the guys issuing those passports is that they knew back in the fall that eventually these mandates will be lifted and people will want to travel. And I think that they miscalculated in terms of the staffing levels that they need in order for them to process these 350,000 Canadian applications or passports. And of course, they only process normally about 110,000 a year. and people haven't been getting passports for 2 years. So now, guess what? Everybody wants a passport, and they want it now. So an experience has been over the last couple of weeks that you have to have a lot of patience. You have to get on the phone, and you got to wait hours to be able to talk to somebody. And once you do talk to somebody, then they'll get the problem solved. But it's just that waiting that gets to be really nasty, and that people have to have that patience.
I just want to ask one thing. We were talking about this earlier on. I watched Omar Al-Gabra trying to basically come up with reasons why this was continuing to go on. And one of the things he said, which really struck me, was, and this gave me the idea that he's kind of out of answers. He said, if people would just, when they go through security, for example, know that they have to take their laptops out and get rid of their water bottles before they go, it would make things a lot better. And people have been doing that forever, which again gave me the idea he may be in over his head here. What do you think?
Well, I don't think he's over in his head. I think that this is a system that has to work. So it's not just the airport, the CATSA guys that have to do their thing. The airlines have to do their thing. The baggage guys have to do their thing. And it seems that, the system is broken. And there's something that's going on that's really causing Pearson to be, abnormally busy. And I think that, it's not just the airport's fault. It's the airlines as well that basically have decided to put a lot of flights in there and push a lot of people through the airports, and the airports aren't ready.
You're not ready. Yeah. I mean, thank you, John, for that. And we're going to speak. You spoke about people needing patience right now to get a passport. We're about to speak to someone who I think has displayed an incredible amount of patience. Kelly BELLWARE actually reached out to me with a story of the hell, frankly, that she's been going through trying to get her mom's 81-year-old mom's passport. Kelly joins us by telephone right now. So, Kelly, you sent me a story that, it has to be heard to be believed in terms of what you've been going through. So walk us through this. How it's been weeks and weeks at this point.
Well, yeah, my mom actually applied for her passport. I think it was in April, and about 9 weeks after she applied, she hadn't heard anything back. So we decided to start trying to find out what was going on. And actually, unfortunately, in the meantime, a very close friend of the family passed away in the U.S., and we have to get to the funeral on Saturday in the States. And so we started digging and went here, went there, Cornwall, Fairview, and then ended up at Neuf-Saint-Laurent. And we've basically been living there for the past 2 days, and it's still not resolved.
You wrote to me at 3:43 a.m., and you were there along with a few hundred other people camped out. What are they telling you, Kelly?
They don't say much, but I'm not one to dump on people. I don't like when people, I work in retail, I don't like when people, think they know how I do my job or our job. So I feel for them, I really do. But what happened was, like, when we arrived yesterday, we were in line. We came in at 8:30 yesterday morning, and it was already too late. Like, the line was snaked around the far end of the building. So we got out, and I had brought a lawn chair that was ready to go if we needed it, like for my mom and stuff. And we stayed in line, and that was fine. And we were doing that for a couple of hours and, making the best of it, chatting with people. And then they came out at one point, and they said that if you're not traveling within the next 24 to 48 hours, basically, you can remove yourself from the line because you wouldn't get treated or met with that day. And then a few hours after that, say around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, keep in mind the office closes at 4, they came out and said, we're done. We have enough people. I know now from being inside the building today that it is quite large, but they had what they felt was enough, and there was no way that they were going to be able to, meet with anyone else beyond that time. And then that's when I wasn't at the front of the line. We were further down, but that's when the next thing we knew, the police showed up.
To try to get
cars.
Okay.
Sorry, I assume maybe they called, like they being like the passport office people, but there were flashing lights, which of course we all saw, and then moved up to the front, and I don't know.
They must have been called to disperse the crowd. I guess people were just hanging on to hope. So before we run out of time, what happened today? You were there at 3:43 in the morning. Were you able to be seen?
I went back at 12:30 after I brought my mom home last night at 8 o'clock so she could get a good night's sleep.
Oh, boy.
We hung in, whatever, and yes, because I was one of, say, the 15 first few people. We'd met people at this point. We'd exchanged cell phone information. We were being placeholders for each other. someone had brought like a tent, like an awning. So I was in front of that. I was in that awning. It started rain only much later. And yeah, we were one of the first few people through, and we did see someone, and, they were very helpful. And again, I do feel for them, but it's not resolved. We'll know something maybe tomorrow, right down to the last, second. But yeah, it's not resolved yet.
So as it stands, you don't know if you and your 81-year-old mom will be able to attend this family funeral in upstate New York on Saturday.
Well, we will, but here's the thing, Natasha, and I forgot to say this to your producer earlier when we spoke the first time, but what happens is that it's looking very much like my mom is going to have to bite the bullet, pay for another passport, so all over again, $120 and $110 expediting fee, and not get her original $120 back for the one that she did, she submitted 9 weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay. Well, keep us posted on this story. And sure. I mean, when we talk about patience, good grief, you and your 81-year-old mom have had that and then some.
And there's a lesson for everybody who's going to find themselves in a similar boat, right? Good luck.
Yeah.
And, you better have a lot of patience.
And perseverance. Thank you, Kelly.
Informative, interactive, and always interesting. This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
She is a 4-time Olympic medalist. You know her name if you follow hockey in this country at all. Marie-Philippe Poulin has now been hired on as consultant of player development with the Montreal Canadiens. The announcement made yesterday, and she is on the line right now. Hi, Marie-Philippe.
Hi, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm great.
Listen,
congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I will ask you just real quick here, first of all, how you found out and how long this has been in the works.
Well, obviously since the Olympics, when I got back, I heard a little bit that the Habs were interested in kind of touching base with me, and obviously was a little bit busy, but took the time to listen to the conversation, went in and met with Jeff, John, and Kent, and just sat down, and obviously, for me, was they knew I still wanted to play. My priority wanted to be still a hockey player, so they were really aware of that, and they just wanted to make sure I had a role in the organization. And right away, they came up with that consultant in that development, and very happy in that for that role.
So what does that role actually entail? What does a new consultant on player development? What do you do?
Well, right now I think it started after the draft, being able to connect with the new prospect people that have been along with the team, and just watching video, doing video session on Zoom calls, and really kind of watch their games and see what they can do better, see what we can improve, and obviously sitting with Adam Nicholas, which I'll be working with, and make plans to make sure these players are keeping involving, and to make sure they make it to the next level.
So when we heard the news yesterday, Alex, who's our producer on the show, was very, very excited. I believe she may have been jumping up and down because she has played hockey and coached hockey as well. And to hear this news, and I know people say to have a woman in this kind of a role sends a message to all young girls, thinking of a future in this sport with a team like the Canadiens. Pretty positive message. So I know she wanted to ask you something. So Alex, go ahead.
Well, one thing that I want to ask is you're obviously going to help develop individual skills. I know that's one of the areas that you're going to be looking at. But is there anything that you yourself want to learn from this consultant job?
Yeah, obviously a lot. I think it's going to be quite the learning experience. I'm really looking forward to it. And just learning and picking the people's brain and knowing how they see the hockey. And even for myself, seeing it from a different angle. I've been in my hockey position as a player for a long time, and just taking a little step back and looking at the game in a different angle, seeing how I can communicate with those guys will be very exciting. I'm really looking forward to kind of learn more and seeing how people see the game.
Go ahead, Alex. You got another one?
I do, yeah. And obviously there's noticeable difference between men's hockey and women's hockey. What do you think men's hockey can learn from women's hockey and vice versa?
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting. I think obviously we all know it's no body checking in the middle of the ice. I think it's obviously they are stronger. It is faster. It's a different game. But obviously for me bringing in, I think it's just seeing the ice differently, and maybe using the ice, using your body in a different way to protect the puck, and doing different skill that really can a big difference at the end of the day, and those little details are very important. And obviously, I'm going to be learning a lot, and hopefully, I can bring a little bit in that they can learn as well.
You mentioned yesterday, we played a clip. You were talking about some of the younger players, and there are a lot of young kids on this team. It's going to take a while for this team to, become a playoff contender, as it were. You talked about Cole Caulfield and working with him, and I'm going to guess, is that going to be one of the focuses for you, working with the younger players first?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the start. I think for me, it's like knowing that the prospect that's going to be getting drafted in Montreal and being able to learn with them, watch their games, and really start from there. And we'll see what's going to be bringing.
So you're a national hero. I think that goes without saying. And I'm sure the response in general has been incredibly positive. But I'm just curious in terms of, it's a new thing to have a woman in this role. What has the response been? Has there been any sort of doubters there, Marie-Philippe?
I think there always are. I think, especially in the men's sport, when a woman gets a role in that sense, so you always have to prove yourself. But to be honest, I've been very fortunate with the response and how people are very happy for me. So obviously, I'm just going to keep my head down, go to work, and just keep learning and making an impact in that sense.
Yeah, and I will ask, because I have a theory, Marie-Philippe, just so you know, that this is kind of a stepping stone. I know you're going to keep playing for a while, but ultimately, my theory is that you will end up as an assistant coach on this team, so standing next to Marty St. Louis on the bench. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Obviously, it's going to be one step at a time, but I'm really looking forward to start and really learning. Obviously, I'm in a player position. I've never been there before, so I'm not there to be missed knowing all. I'm going to be wide open to learn and really look eager to learn even more.
All right, listen, first of all, as Natasha, as we said off the top, congratulations. This is an amazing appointment and obviously a wonderful opportunity for you. Want to wish you all the best in your new role with the Habs.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
And so glad you're still going to play for Team Canada.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marie-Philippe Poulin. There you go. She is the Canadians' new consultant for player development. And as I said, look at it, 2 years, 3 years, standing next to Marty St. Louis on the bench. I think that's going to happen. That wraps up this edition of The Week That Was on the iHeartRadio Network. I'm Aaron Rand, along with Natasha Hall, and we will see you next week.
Have a great week.
This has been the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. Listen live on your radio weekday afternoons from 2 to 6 on CJAD 800 or through the iHeartRadio app.